Hello and welcome to Beyond the Bubble. I'm Darren Barnett.
And I'm Jordan Farrell. On today's edition of Beyond the Bubble, we will cover the exciting finish to the World Series, as well as Food Day here at Berry, plus an in-studio interview with Dr. Bailey about the 2012 presidential elections.
Let's get things started with the latest in sports news. The 2012 World Series came to an epic finish this past weekend as the San Francisco Giants swept the Detroit Tigers 4-0 in a best-of-7 game series. The championship ended in Detroit with a 4-3 victory for San Francisco as Giants pitcher Sergio Romo closed the game with a strikeout against Detroit Tigers' Miguel Cabrera in the 10th inning. Giants' Pablo Sandoval, who in Game 1 tied the record for hitting 3 home runs in a World Series game, was named the World Series' most valuable player. ESPN attributed San Francisco's success to, quote, smart pitching, clutch hitting, sharp fielding, plus an MVP. This was the Giants' 7th World Series title.
This past week, Food Day took place here at Berry College. Food Day is a national event started by a Washington, D.C. advocacy group to promote the production of local food and raise awareness to the ethics of food. It is a movement to raise awareness on issues such as where our food is being grown to what chemicals are being used to grow them. Berry College was one of over 200 campuses to participate in this Food Day by having a local vegetable sale, made in part by our very own Season's Harvest, and a photo booth by the Berry College Green Team.
We're in the final stretch here for the 2012 presidential election, and earlier today I got to sit down with Berry government professor Dr. Michael Bailey to give us some insight on the race thus far, plus some information on voter turnout in the United States today. Let's take a look. We're here with Dr. Michael Bailey, professor of government at the Evans School of Humanities and Social Sciences. Dr. Bailey, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
So we're going to start out, Dr. Bailey, just with general observations about the election process thus far in terms of debates and campaigning. Is there anything really that stood out to you this year?
Right. I'm glad that you mentioned debates. That would be the first one. This debate, the first debate, the debate in Denver, made just an enormously important impact on this campaign. And one more example of how political scientists are bad at predicting things. Virtually no one thought that this particular debate would make a difference, and it made an enormous difference in our perceptions of Romney's competence, his care for people, and it made people reevaluate Obama and his attentiveness to details. It really changed people's perceptions about the candidates. It made a huge difference. Another significant factor of this particular election has been the emphasis on the swing states. And everyone knows at some abstract level the Electoral College and not the popular vote is what really makes the difference. But we have such a close election in this particular case, and where all of that energy, nearly $1 billion, both sides have raised, are really being poured into a very small number of swing states: Colorado, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, a few others, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan. And much of the rest of the nation is abandoned. Some are grateful because they don't hit that onslaught of commercials, but others feel neglected. This particular election highlights how our system really is an electoral college system.
So we are in the final stages here of the 2012 election, and let's talk about voter turnout specifically. Voter turnout in the United States has decreased over the years with what seems to be a decline since the 1960s. Why do you think this is?
It's a great question. Voter turnout has historically fluctuated. Since the 60s, there has been a general decline. It's picked up, however, in the last 3 elections. Why did it decline? Why did it pick up? And political scientists don't agree on why it declined. One reason had to do early on, after 1960, is that people didn't always see a difference between the candidates and what they offered. Another reason is that citizens are just bombarded with just multitude elections here. So we have primary elections, we have local elections, school board elections, gubernatorial elections, house elections, dog catcher elections. We estimate that we vote once or twice a year, and people might have sort of voter fatigue. Why is it picked up in the last 3 elections? Probably because these 3 elections have struck people as introducing 2 very different candidates with very different visions of America. And as the parties have become more pure ideologically, conservatives more Republicans, but more pure conservatively, and the Democrats more pure in a liberal sense, those candidates really do offer different visions, and that has really fueled people to want to go and make that decision.
So even with this recent increase, it seems that the United States still has a very low voter turnout rate,
Right.
Internationally.
Right.
So it seems that most Americans, or a lot of Americans, just really don't care about politics in general. They really don't take the initiative to get out there and understand the candidates or their policies. But we still see the ads on television and in print or wherever that's saying get out there and vote, satisfy your civic duty, you're an American, get out there and vote. But for the people that don't really know anything about the candidates and their policies, do you think they should be voting?
That's a good question. I'm going to evade the question though, and what I'm going to suggest is that people often do not vote because they don't know something. But it works the other way as well. The causal arrow works the other way. When people do not understand themselves to be a voter primarily, they don't take the time to go and learn about issues. The reality is it's never been easier to find out about the issues, about the candidates, what their different stances are, what their bios are. It does not take a whole lot of effort. And people who understand themselves to be voters go and do make that effort for the most part. So what we need to do, I think, as a country is to, of course, educate people. And the fact that our campaigns do not do a good job of educating people, I think, should cause us to reevaluate how they're run. But the other thing is we need to develop a real ethic of voting that would hopefully then translate into people taking the effort to find out what they're voting about. I don't think it's a bad idea that you go to the polls without knowing all the knowledge that you might. People have a general sense of what their interests are. They have a general sense of which candidate might serve those particular interests. But of course, it's a given that the more you know about the issues, you're going to be a better informed candidate, make a better judgment what's good for the nation, as well as what's good for your own long-term interests.
So for future reference, what do you have to say to the college kids and qualified voters in general that have not gotten out and voted for the 2012 elections?
Well, I'd say for qualified voters, of course, they should vote. I would say for those who are unqualified voters, and I take it you don't mean legally here, but what you mean is by being ill-informed, there's still an opportunity the next few days to learn how the candidates differ on some significant issues. With respect to students, I just would remind them that these two candidates differ and differ fairly dramatically in their view about the role of the federal government. In general, Obama thinks that the best way to get more people into the educational system at the university level is to provide them with aid, tax credits, and with loans and with Pell Grants. And the Romney team thinks that the best way to get more people involved in higher education is to lower the price of education to make it more affordable to poor people. And the way to do that, they think, is by actually stopping fuel tuition by reducing the amount of federal involvement. There is a real difference of opinion, real difference of choice, and people will be affected by those choices. I would encourage them to make a decision that might really affect their pocketbook and go out and vote.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey.
You're welcome.
That's all we have for you today on Beyond the Bubble. For more full stories and information regarding issues going on here at Berry as well as the community, be sure to stay right here on Viking Fusion. For Viking Fusion News, I'm Jordan Farrell.
And I'm Darren Barnett. See you next time.